Hey backers, Thomas here from Team Linvander, filming this playthrough video and components video. Onto the right here we have Aaron Murch.
Hey Kickstarter.
And to the left here we have Cameron.
Hey Kickstarter.
That didn't actually show. Want to try what you did there?
Hey Kickstarter.
No, lower.
Hey Kickstarter.
There, that's better. Okay.
In the core game, you've got everything we've shown here, including 8 characters. We've got 4 set up and there's a few more in front of Cameron. There's 3 story quests, a whole bunch of cards, tiles. It's a big game with a lot of stuff in it. And the reason I mention how big it is because it really gives you a frame of reference for how big the expansions are. Because when I say the expansions have a lot of content, I mean they've got literally twice as much as the core game itself. When you get to the deluxe content, you're actually getting an entire second board.
That's Avalon.
You use this in conjunction with various card effects that swap between the 2 boards, and certain quests actually require you to start the game with the Avalon board in place instead of the Camelot board. And those have all kinds of specific rules for how to use those parts of the games. We've also got new in the Old Kings and Aaron's Journey content. We've got these Lost Bastion and these sort of windows to Avalon where you can visit these, and they link up to realm tiles on the Avalon board. And those are the bonus areas you can visit in the game. But as far as other content, we're talking just tons and tons of character sheets. Like absolutely dwarfing the 8 you get in the core game.
Yeah, and for a total of 34 characters. 34 playable characters. The core game comes with 8.
Yep.
And the 7 expansions in total will give you can stick those right in front of you there. It will give you a total of 34 characters. We also have these quests here. We have 3 quest cards come in the core game, and there's 10 additional quests that come with the expansion set, and they are just full of different ways to play the game. Tons of different monsters. They feel different. They behave differently. It's just an action pack. You know, if you play one of these quests, you've got 13 times you can play this game, and if you don't get sick of any of these quests, you're going to get at least 13 plays out of this game.
The modular nature of the game means that even if you only had 1 quest to work with, you could play this game over and over again and have a totally different experience. With the 3 quests in the core game, you have even more options, and then with the just exorbitant amount of quests in the expansions, you're never going to run out of content for this game.
Or characters, or coins, or tiles. Each expansion comes with more tiles. They come with more cards. It's actually 2.5 times more content with the 7 expansions than you would get if you get the core game. But enough about all that fun stuff. Let's get into Albion's Legacy. So we'll clear out some of the bonus content.
The other benefits of the expansions for Albion's Legacy is once you start adding the expansions to the game, you go up from a player cap of 4 to a player cap of 6. And 6 players are a unique way to play the game, as you'll be running 2 different story quests.
So, getting into the actual game itself, I think what we'll do is we'll go through all of the components that you see here on the board, because what you have basically is the core game at this stage. And then we'll get into the gameplay, and we'll do 1 or 2, maybe 3 turns to show you how the gameplay plays out.
To start, we each have 2 characters here. So our character sheets give us our character's name, their crest, which is also where we'll place virtue plaques, which Aaron will get to later. We have slots for cards. Characters will start with 2 pieces of starting gear, a weapon and an armor. These allow you to avoid taking wounds in combat. We've got our destiny tokens, which can be spent for dice quality and for fueling special abilities. Personal quests give you an insight into the story of the character, and it gets you to go to a location that's important to that character to perform some sort of task. Then you have your attributes, which will tell you how many dice you're going to roll and have the symbols that you're looking for on those dice. So if I was doing loyalty, I've got the crowns right there. Then we have our favorite enemies, which gives you an additional die to show that you are especially good at fighting specific enemies of the realm. And finally, your special ability, which is unique to each character. In Mordred here's case, he can spend a destiny once per round when he's fighting an enemy in order to avoid taking a wound token. Then we have this cross at the bottom, which is where those wound tokens will actually go. You can only take 1, and the second one will kill your character.
That's the character sheet breakdown. Now we get to the board and everything else. No?
The most important thing to understand before we get into actually playing the game, in order to win the game, we have to complete all of the requirements of our chosen story quest. Now, the quest we've chosen is Dux Valorum, and this has a very flavorful explanation that basically tells us to find specific realm tiles, pass challenges to win the game. On top of the requirements of our story quest, we also have to beat enough of the threat cards that we'll be facing as we play the game to collect these little metal quest coins and have enough of those per player to win the game. We ultimately need 3 per character, so we're going to need a total of 12 to win the game. And I mentioned that we have to go to specific locations to pass the challenges in our story quest. Those are represented by these realm tiles. We'll be searching through this stack, expanding outward from the castle, actually exploring the lands of Albion, looking for the locations that are important to the quest.
So at the start of the game, all we have here is the actual castle Camelot. We have the Flames of Hopes around the outside, which represents our time limit. It's one of the ways we can lose, is despair tokens will be placed at the end of each key turn, extinguishing one of these flames. When all 10 go out, the game is over immediately. Also in this castle, we have the round table, which will be the starting point of all players. We have the stables, which are locked off at the start of the game until we have at least 1 quest coin per player, because you have to earn your horse. It's a status symbol, and it is very powerful in the game. We'll also have all these various other positions around the castle that have various benefits when we end our turn there to activate that realm tile, whether it's drawing from a certain deck, or healing your wounds, or dropping off captured enemies for quest coins as an alternate way to gain them. The castle has 3 exits, the docks, the sally port, and the drawbridge, which are each associated with one of the 3 realms that you can visit. The backs of the realm tiles will have 1, 2, or even all 3 of those realms on them, and you'll just search through the stack until you find one that's appropriate for the area that you're exploring. Each of our cards have a symbol on the back of them. Generally speaking, if you activate a tile with one of those symbols, it means you are drawing from that deck. So drawing from an armory card, or as you explore the realms, if you see one of these threat symbols, you will draw the top card of the appropriate threat deck. Each time a card is drawn from a deck, you'll move the threat token to the other deck as a reminder of which deck you're drawing from, as you will alternate between drawing general threats, which tend to be non-named enemies that are fairly easy to deal with, or severe threats, which are the important villains of the Arthurian saga.
We have our layout, we have our characters, we have our starting equipment. Let's get into the game, and maybe when we get into a bad guy, let's get into the game.
So Mordred has the key turn token, which means he's going to be our first player.
All right, so Mordred will enter play at the round table, like any good knight should, and all players start with a movement of 4, meaning we can go through 4 tiles. Now that's just enough that I can get out of the castle on my first turn and start exploring immediately if that's what I want. And Mordred doesn't seem the type to wait around, so he's going to immediately head north and start exploring the mountains region.
So I flip up a tile for Cameron that has the mountain region marked on the back. In this case, the first tile on the realm stack can be placed in that region.
And I'll rotate that as I choose. In my case, I'm going to rotate this so that it gives me the most possible exits. And I can choose whether or not to enter this after scouting it. On one hand, entering this space will make me draw an encounter card, which could be good, could be very bad. But on the other hand, if I enter it now, I don't have to worry about it next turn. So we'll go here and I will draw my encounter. The encounter is the Dream of Ronabui. You must make a Loyalty 3 challenge to stop the traitors at Camland from amassing an army. If you succeed, gain 1 Destiny token. If you fail, you must place 1 Despair token to extinguish a Flame of Hope. So, this is telling me what stat I need to roll for and how many successes I need to get. So my loyalty, unfortunately, is fairly poor as Mordred, so I only get 3 dice to roll.
It's because you betrayed Dad so many times.
It's actually pretty cool that you got that card, considering those are Mordred's traitors.
You don't know that necessarily. They could be anybody's traitors. So I'm going to roll those 3 dice. And because the reward for this is getting a Destiny if I were to succeed, I'm not hesitant to actually start spending Destiny on it.
But when you do spend the Destiny, what does that do for you?
When you spend Destiny on a roll, you get to take 1 of your dice. So I'll do that right now. I'll spend 1 of these Destiny. And I'll get to take 1 of these dice and re-roll it. When I do that, I can name an additional symbol. See, right now I'm looking for crowns because it's loyalty. And then we have the mana burst symbol, which always counts as 2 successes. So that's already 2 things I can get. I'm gonna add a third symbol. I'm gonna say boots here, which are movement. And when I re-roll this die, if boots, crowns, or mana burst come up, it counts as a success. And unfortunately, that's not the case. So I've already spent 1 of my destiny. I feel like I've done enough for the kingdom at this point as Mordred. So I'm just gonna accept my failure. This gets discarded, and we get our first despair token on one of the Flames of Hope.
Oh, this grip mat is really cool.
And then we'll pass on clockwise to the Lady of the Lake. She will also enter the round table. However, she isn't going to follow Mordred's example. She's actually going to take a turn to gear up before leaving.
Now, I see you've chosen one of the virtue plaques, and that's a very interesting first turn choice, because these virtue plaques are actually our second lose condition. If the last virtue plaque is ever removed from this stack for any reason, the game is lost. Now, they have very powerful abilities, so it's very important to choose some of them so that you can power up your characters, but if you take too many, you bring yourself closer to losing the game and risk tipping yourself over the edge. Now, every time a character is retired, you get to keep playing the game with a new character, but it does remove another virtue plaque from the stack, so you've always got to worry about spending too many of them.
And there's some named creatures and stuff out there whose special abilities will actually burn virtues from your plaque. So if you're balancing your resources, which you think, proper, you could suddenly get sparked with the Black Knight or a couple of the other iconic heroes that'll just burn those virtue plaques away and make you lose the game.
In this case, the Lady of the Lake got Courage, which allows her to roll an extra Stone of Chance on Courage challenges, essentially making her stat a 5, which is fantastic. In addition to that, I can also, once per key turn, instantly win a challenge against a non-named witch. So I don't even have to roll dice, I just go in and say, I'm using my ability, that witch is gone.
Done. Eat it. All right.
So we're on to Guinevere.
When you activate a tile and draw something, that usually signals the end of your turn. If the Lady of the Lake actually had more movement left, but she chose to activate that tile, then she's choosing to forego the rest of her movement and draw from the appropriate tile. And now it's time for Guinevere, the Queen, to make her entrance into the round table.
Like any other character, Guinevere starts at the round table, and I've got 4 movement to play with. It's important to note, because I get asked about this a lot, we can't move through the walls in the castle. We've got to make sure we're using open hallways. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to walk down to the Sally Port and scout into the forest. I've got a tile that can be played in either the forest or the river region. And I get Keep Bersilac. Now, Keep Bersilac is a threat tile, which means one of our threat cards is immediately drawn. And that's before I even entered the tile. I had no choice in the matter. So I go ahead and I draw one of our threat cards. And I see that the threat I got was Slaughter Bridge. Now, Slaughter Bridge is one of the craziest threat cards in the game. This actually spawns 2 Traitor tokens, 2 Saxon tokens, 2 Witch tokens, and 2 Druid tokens. So that's a hell of a card to get right off the bat.
That is probably the worst of our general threats.
Which realm tiles did they normally spawn on?
Any round tiles. So we're going to drop them wherever we can.
And spread them out as much as I can.
So spawning them in the hallways is because when they tell you to spawn them on specific realm tiles, you can't double up. And if it tells you what color of realm tile to put it on, you can only place it on those particular colors, 1 creature at a time. And if there's not enough, then the overflow goes into the castle, into the hallway region.
So we've spread out these enemies. Being that we could place them on any realm tiles, we will start with the 2 realm tiles we have outside of the castle. In this case, I put a Saxon near Guinevere because I'm pretty sure she's good against them. And I put a traitor actually on Mordred's space, as they were one of his favorite enemies. Because Mordred shares a space with an enemy token, combat will occur immediately, and that interrupts everything else that's going on. So if I flip this enemy token over, that will tell me what their challenge rating is, or how many successes I need, and which stats I can use to fight them. In this case, I can use Prowess, the axes, or Loyalty, and I need 3 successes. Well, as we know, Mordred's Loyalty is not good, but his Prowess is pretty good. And being that one of his favorite enemies are traitors, I'll get an extra die. So I actually get to roll 6 dice against this guy. Could you pass me another die?
Absolutely.
All right. There we go. So, I've only got 2 successes so far. So I will need to spend more destiny or take a wound or avoid taking a wound in order to keep going. If I take a wound or break something to avoid taking a wound, I will take all these dice and re-roll them. Being that I'm 1 success away, I'm willing to spend that destiny, re-roll one of these, adding my trusty boots to it, and there we are.
Wow, trusty
I
boot
named
actually
boots,
came into play.
I now have my 3 successes, and this traitor is defeated. I actually get to keep his enemy token, and I can trade them in later either at the dungeon or when a named enemy that came with traitors is defeated.
With combat out of the way, we'll continue with the gameplay as normal. The very next thing that happens when we get a threat card is that the card goes on this track along with a quest coin that we'll get to collect as soon as the threat is defeated. To actually defeat that threat, we have to take out all of the enemies listed on the card.
So if another threat comes up while we're dealing with this that spawns one of these enemy types, those threats will become linked and we won't be able to collect any of them until all of them are resolved.
So it really gives you a push-pull with your resource management on the board, with trying to keep your enemies down. So there are no more immediate combats taking place, and the tile that was spawned by Guinevere basically polluted the entire kingdom full of bad guys. You have 1 movement left with Guinevere. You can choose to go onto the tile and fight the Saxon, or you can go back into the hallway and fight the witch, or you can choose not to move at all. What do you want to do?
Looking at my character sheet, I see that Saxons are one of my favorite enemies. So I'm going to go ahead and forge on and go immediately into a challenge against this Saxon.
What can that Saxon be killed with? Prowess or altruism?
Looking at my character sheet, I've got low prowess at 4, but I've got 5 altruism. So I'm going to go ahead and roll 5 dice, plus 1 for the Saxon as my bonus enemy. And I'm looking for either altruism results or mana bursts to give me the successes I need to defeat this enemy. In this case, I got 2 mana bursts. At 2 successes each, that's actually 4 successes overall, which is more than enough to defeat the enemy token.
So we're on to Lancelot.
Yes. Lancelot comes into the round table like any other character. And I look around the castle, seeing what a mess has already been made. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to check that druid, see what attributes I can use to challenge it, because I would like to go after all of the enemies kicking around if I can. I see they can be challenged using loyalty or altruism. Now my loyalty is 3, but my altruism is 5. So I've got decently good odds of defeating that druid. I'm going to go ahead and challenge it. I'm going to roll 5 dice for altruism, and I'm looking for either the altruism symbol or mana bursts.
Ooh.
Got him.
Totally.
That takes out the enemy.
See a druid. And that was 1 movement?
Yes.
Now you've got 3 more movement to do stuff with.
If you're feeling particularly brave, you could maybe go after the witch and then circle up and get that traitor as
I
well.
don't know, that witch looks pretty scary, actually.
Yeah, what can the witch be challenged with?
Courage and loyalty, both of which are your lowest stats.
Yeah.
Maybe just go after the traitor.
Get away from that witch.
Alright, so I'm going to go after the traitor, which can be challenged using prowess or loyalty. I'm definitely not going to use loyalty here, but prowess is my 6th stat, which is very, very good. So I'm actually going to roll all of the dice, and I'm looking for either prowess symbols or mana bursts.
Boom.
And in this case, I got 2 prowess symbols, 1 mana burst for a total of 4 successes. That defeats the traitor, and I've got 1 movement left in my turn. Now, I'm also going to gear up a little bit before leaving the castle, so I'm going to end my turn in the Bergfried and gain a virtue plaque. Mine is self-reliance. During each key turn, I can choose to have all enemy tokens move towards me instead of following their normal movement command.
Ooh, that's good. Okay, so now that Lancelot's gone, all 4 characters have gone. Now this is one of the most important things about this game, about the key turn token.
Because Mordred has the key turn token, he will actually get to take another turn before the end of the round, or the key turn. So in this case, Mordred will have a full turn to deal with things. You guys probably have the castle taken care of. So Mordred is going to continue scouting out the north and see if he can find one of the 8 locations we're looking for. So in order to scout a tile, you need to have an open path near your character, and you need to have available movement left. Because I haven't moved at all in my turn, I can still move 4 times. So I'm going to start by saying that I'm scouting in this direction.
All right. So I look at the stack and I see that this top tile can only be played in the forest region. I'm going to go ahead and move that to the bottom of the stack. This next tile can be played in the forest or mountain region, so that one is playable. And it is...
Camelard.
So that is not one of the locations we need for our story, unfortunately.
But according to this symbol, this is an armory tile. So if I end my turn there, which I'm not going to, I still want to scout more, but if I do, I will get to draw the top card of the armory stack. And that could be more armor, weapons, or accessories that'll help my character as he moves around.
In addition to that, it looks like it's Guinevere's personal tile.
It is.
Now, a common question we get is, being that you need movement, does it cost movement to scout? The answer is no, but if I want to continue scouting in my turn, I will have to enter this tile before moving on. I can't scout these 2 paths until I've finished scouting this one. So once I enter Camelard, now I can scout one of these 3 paths, in which case I'm going to keep going straight, because why not?
Well, the answer to that is because you found a road.
Uh-oh.
As we learned at the start, Mordred's not afraid of roads. So I'm just going to enter that road so I can continue scouting, assuming the encounter doesn't end my turn. So the Council of 12. Draw and discard the top card from the item and armory decks.
Ah, so it's just eating up resources.
Yeah. So that's not as bad as it could be. But we did lose a map to Camelot, which is very useful as you can discard it in order to return to the castle quickly. And a mighty lance, which would have let someone break it to avoid a wound or use their prowess instead of courage while making challenges.
Which would have been awesome for me. So it would have let me use one of my high stats in place of one of my really low stats.
Whereas courage is my highest stat, so I don't really care. And then I will finally scout this direction. I've moved twice so far, so I can still scout up to 2 more times.
And in this case, you found Bedonicus, which I believe is in fact one of our quest locations.
Oh, excellent.
So what happens once you find a quest location?
In this particular quest, each of these 8 quest locations, we need to go to them, perform a specific challenge. So if I don't have the correct attribute for it, someone else will have to come and deal with it. And then bring all of the story tokens we collect from those back to the round table. So I'm entering Bedonicus, and I might as well attempt this check.
As you can see, I've already placed a story token on the quest tile, so if Cameron succeeds in his role, he'll be able to pick up that token.
Perfect. And it looks like you have a courage of 6, so it looks like your courage can actually handle that, because on Bedonicus it requires a courage check with 4 successes in order to gain that story quest.
Excellent. This is just the job for Mordred.
Oh, wow.
Well, I didn't roll any courage symbols, but I got 2 mana bursts, so that's all the 4 successes I need. So I get to claim this story token.
Now, when the story token is claimed, it stays on your character sheet unless your character is retired, in which case it drops on whatever tile the retired character retires on.
Luckily, I don't plan on retiring anytime soon.
And of course, even if he does have to retire, we won't have to pass a challenge again to pick up the token. We'll just go to wherever he dropped it, pick it up, and keep questing.
So I'm actually going to move back onto this road, because once I've triggered it on my turn, it will not trigger again until my next turn. But as I showed in the first turn, if I start my turn on the road, I don't have to draw the encounter. So this gives me more options at the start of my next turn.
Okay.
Now that Mordred's turn is over, the key turn token will move. So this gets passed to the next character.
And when that token moves, that's when the board goes nuts.
It's important to understand that the key turn isn't actually a player turn. It's the phase of gameplay in which the game itself fights back.
So each of these tokens will have to check for what their movement command is. Now, according to Slaughterbridge, all 4 of these enemy types have the movement command aggressive. It's the most common movement command in Albion's Legacy, and it just means that they're going to move towards the closest player to them. They'll always move 1 space unless otherwise noted.
There are two other types of moving commands. There is hold, in which case the token will stay in its tile, and usually that's paired with an effect that is pretty annoying to the game, so you have to actively go out and take out that token. And the third one is called objective, in which case it usually has a specific tile or a specific place that it wants to go to, and it'll find the most efficient route that way without actually trying to encounter any of the characters in the game.
So with all of these enemies being aggressive, we'll just find out which enemy is closest to them. These ones are obvious. The Lady of the Lake is closest. So this druid will move right into her tile, engaging in combat. The witch will move closer. The Saxon will move closer. Now these ones, we have Lancelot 3 spaces away, but Guinevere is only 2. So this witch will move into the Sally Port to cut off Guinevere's retreat. Now the Lady of the Lake is in combat. The druid can be defeated with either loyalty or altruism, both of which are high stats. So this is just up to whatever I feel like. Also, druids are one of her favorite enemies. So she will get to roll 6 dice on this.
Oh, gosh.
And I'm going to choose loyalty.
Crowns.
Oh, that is a dead druid, because I've got 5 successes here. 2, 4, 5. So I will claim that token. He shouldn't have picked a fight with the Lady of the Lake in the library.
Now, it's important to note that this combat happened while the enemy tokens were moving, and it didn't actually take up any of the player character's actions or economy.
Now, certain enemy effects will go off on key turn. We don't have any of those currently. So all we had to do was move enemies. And now that that's done and there are no other active doom effects or threat cards, now we will add a despair token to the track.
Extinguishing a flame of hope.
And it will now begin with the player with the key turn token, which is the Lady of the Lake.
Now, she's got courage.
Yes, which allows her to instantly win a fight against a non-named witch, so she might as well go over here and deal with that. So I'll use that ability now, defeat this witch without trying. And then I'll move over here and fight this Saxon. They can be fought with with altruism or prowess. And I guess I will use my altruism.
What's interesting about this is that you're actually on the war room, which is an enhancement tile. And it's important to know that if any character is on an enhancement tile at any given time, it gives a bonus die based on what the enhancement is. So if you wanted to fight it with prowess, you'd actually get a bonus die, which would be the same count as what you have currently. So
now, the other benefit is if I end my turn here, is all of the other players will get that bonus die during their turn. So, I will roll this. I'm looking for altruism symbols. I'll get this die out of the way so there's no confusion. And I got a mana burst, but no actual altruism, just boots and a lion. So, I'm going to spend one of my destiny, re-roll this die, and I've seen too many boots, so I'm actually going to add prowess. I'm on the war room. Maybe it'll be lucky. There we go.
Mana burst. That's good enough.
So
that one's done.
Saxon defeated. I've moved 3 spaces. I can move 1 more. I'm actually going to go over, since I can't exit the castle this turn anyways, I'm going to stop over in the barracks and draw an armory card.
Yeah, since none of the other threats on the board require prowess enhancements, there's no real reason to stay in the war room.
So I received the Noble Plate, which is another type of armor that I can break to avoid taking a wound, just like the starting gear. And it also lets me use my loyalty instead of altruism when making a challenge. Being that both are 5 on my character sheet, that's not going to make a difference most of the time, but you never know. Maybe somebody will be on a loyalty enhancement tile when I need it later on. Now,
what's important about drawing items like that is that you don't necessarily have to keep the item. If you choose to reject the item, you can place it at the bottom of the deck. You don't have to discard it. It is time for Guinevere.
The first thing I noticed is that this witch is the last enemy on the board, stopping us from completing that quest. So if I go into the castle and I take out that witch, we actually solve one of the quests that we need to complete to win the game. Looking at the enemy, I see I can challenge it using courage or loyalty. Looking at the enemy, I see that I can challenge it using courage or loyalty. And I have 5 courage. So I'm going to go ahead and roll 5 dice, looking for courage or mana bursts. And I get 2 successes with the mana burst. But No courage results. I still need one more success to defeat the enemy. Destiny tokens are a very powerful resource, so I want to save those for later in the game. I'm going to go ahead and take a wound in this case, forcing me to reroll all of my dice.
So when you get a wound, you can actually mitigate taking that wound by breaking some of your items.
Yes, I could avoid the wound by breaking one of my pieces of starting equipment, removing the wound. In either case, I continue rolling all of my dice and continue fighting the enemy.
Now, it is worth noting if you don't think you're going to win the fight after you've taken a wound or broken an item to avoid taking the wound, characters always have the option to retreat by discarding one of their unbroken items on their character sheet. So make sure that you know whether or not you're going to keep fighting or retreating before breaking your last item.
Right.
In this case, I'm confident that I'm going to beat it, so I'm just going to roll again and hope for the best.
Well, there's 2 mana bursts, and yeah, that's the end of that guy. So now we've completed ourselves a quest.
Yep, there are no enemies remaining from Slaughter Bridge, so this gets discarded.
And the first quest coin is achieved. Now, these quest coins aren't collected individually. You can keep them on the character sheet just for your own personal fun, but they're kind of a collected pool. So it's 3 quest coins per character in play to help with the victory condition. But in this case, we'll just put them on Guinevere got the first one, so we'll put it on her character sheet.
Perfect.
So that leaves you with 3 movement left at this point.
Yeah, with my extra movement, I think I'm going to continue scouting because we really need to find those story locations.
Yeah, you're 2 in thanks to the Mordred's failed quest earlier.
Yeah.
We would also have explored more had Guinevere not spawned literally everyone.
Hey, Guinevere is pulling her weight, supporting the kingdom. I don't see you with a quest coin.
Oh.
So I'm going to go ahead and leave the castle. And then I'm going to scout my first tile. And I see that I've got the Shea Mounds. This is not one of our locations, and it is a threat tile. So this time we're going to get a severe threat. And I see that we get Woolos the Bearded. Spawn the Woolos token on the Kingdom Kent tile. Movement command aggressive. And spawn 2 Saxon tokens on Red Realm tiles. Movement command aggressive. When Woolos is defeated, you must place 1 despair token to extinguish a flame of hope.
So the first thing I notice is conveniently, the only red tiles we have are surrounding Mordred.
Well, serves him right.
And what's most important is that with named creatures, they actually spawn on a separate tile stack.
Yes. So the stack of tiles that named creatures spawn on is indicated with this mace symbol so that you don't mix it into the realm stack. And can you remind me one more time which tile Woolos spawns on?
You are looking for the Kingdom Kent.
Perfect.
Now, once he finds this tile, it will still have the different realms that it can go in, even though you don't scout these tiles out. And this just tells you where in the world that enemy can actually spawn. In this case, Woolos will either appear in the forest region or the rivers region.
So now you guys can decide as a team where you want to put Woolos.
Now, Woolos is a Saxon, and that's one of my favorite enemies. So I'm going to place him near me and try to take him out this turn.
All right.
Because that's 1 more quest going completed, taking us a little bit closer to winning the game. So I've spent 1, 2 movement, 3, 4, puts me on Woolos' tile. Looking at my character sheet, I see he's a favorite enemy.
But you will need 4 successes instead of 3 in order to beat him.
Yes. Now my best stat to fight him with is Altruism, so I'm rolling 6 dice, hoping for Altruism or Mana Bursts. Wow.
I don't see any altruism or mana bursts.
I don't either.
Nothing.
I'm kind of wishing I'd used that Destiny earlier and saved some of my armor and wound slots. In this case, I'm going to break my second piece of armor to avoid taking the wound token. And I'm going to keep rolling and hoping for the best.
Yeah, there's no turning back now. You have no unbroken gear to
That's right, he's locked you into Mortal Kombat.
So I've got 3 of the successes I need.
Ooh, it's a tight fight.
I'm going to go ahead and spend a Destiny token to reroll one of my dice. I'll name Boot as my bonus symbol.
That seems to be the go-to.
And I get the boot.
And Woolos has been defeated.
Gave him the boot.
So now that we've got Woolos, something special happens with named enemy tokens when they're defeated.
Now that I've defeated Woolos, we're a lot closer to completing this quest, but we've still got to deal with those non-named Saxons. As soon as Mordred's turn comes around, he'll be able to fight those off, completing the quest, and then we'll get some special bonuses for actually having defeated a named enemy.
In the meantime, it's Lancelot's turn.
Lancelot finds himself deep in the heart of the castle, so he's probably not going to get to do much on this turn, except for position himself to start scouting on a future turn.
And by that, you mean he's going to chase Guinevere, like he does in the stories.
Of course.
Okay.
So that's Lancelot's entire turn. Pretty uneventful.
All right, so Mordred's been dumped with the deed of dealing with these Saxons here. So I'll start by going after the one on the prowess tile, because then I will get to use 6 dice when fighting it. Because my prowess is 5, and I'm not using altruism.
Sure about that?
I am absolutely positive. So throw a bunch of dice at this Saxon, and I only got 1 success. So I guess I'm breaking my hauberk here to roll all these again, because with 6 dice, I should get more than.
So there's pieces of chainmail splashing all over the place in this combat. Oh, there we go.
There we go. Prowess and mana burst. That is 1 defeated Saxon. The first of many. Then I'll return to the row, which because I started on it, it won't cause any encounters. And I will go over here to this armory tile where I can fight the last Saxon. And
Boom.
There's my success.
Mana burst and prowess. Dead. Now,
with this Saxon defeated, there are no more enemies from this threat, so much like the other one, the quest coin will go to me. And this is a completed quest. This gets discarded, but since it had a named enemy in it, we have the option of trading in that named enemy and any of that type of enemy in order to gain spoils.
any and all, and any character that actually possesses any of the non-named enemy tokens as well can cash those in to also collect spoils. Now, it's an important factor because we want to, if you hold on to these enemy tokens, and there are limited amounts of enemy tokens of any particular type, and if you hold on to these enemy tokens and collect them all, basically, and you draw a threat card that asks you to spawn more of those enemy tokens, and there are no more to draw from the pool, then you immediately just win that quest and get the quest coin. If you trade these guys in during if you cash in your named enemy token and all of the non-named with it, you do get to draw spoils. So it is kind of a push-pull between whether you want to gain items or whether you want to actually stop the board from spawning those particular types of enemies.
In this case, I'm going to go ahead and cash in the Wulos token, which gives me a draw from either the item, armory, or relic deck. Looking at the cards, I'm going to go ahead and take an item card. I'm really hoping for the maps of Albion that let me fish out specific realm tiles. And I got a spyglass, which is in fact the other card that lets me search for specific realm tiles, which means I'm going to have a much easier time finding my quest locations.
As Mordred here, I've got 2 of these Saxons. I'm also going to trade them in. I will have to trade in both. I don't have to trade in my traders because traders weren't spawned by the threat that spawned Wulos. So I'll trade in these Saxons, and my gear got beat up, so I'm going to grab an armory card, hoping to replace it. In which case, I found the Noble Flail. I can use loyalty instead of courage when making a challenge. Being that loyalty is my lowest stat and courage is my highest, I'm actually just going to turn that down. That is garbage.
It also is important to note that at the bottom of the cards, it tells you whether it's a weapon or an armor or a special. So in this case, because he pulled a flail that has a weapon, if he chose to keep it, he would have to discard the longsword, not in fact replacing his starting gear. A quick rundown on these things. Relics are full of really interesting special items and are really interesting and special devices that can change some of the rules of the game. Items are sort of one-off things such as healing potions and maps. And armory is filled with shields, swords, and weapons. And those are sort of the core cards you're going to be drawing throughout the game. Artifacts are things that you can get through your personal quest. If you pass your personal quests, you can actually achieve your artifacts, and those artifacts are specific to each of the characters that are being played. And mounts, as we touched on earlier, can be unlocked after you've achieved 1 quest coin per character in play, and the mounts all of them enhance your movement, giving you a lot more flexibility along the board. The threats you've seen in action and the encounters you've seen in action. So that leads us to any other characters wishing to cash in on the Wooloo's cash in. So in this case, we've got Lady of the Lake has one she can choose to cash in, and Guinevere actually has this action she can cash in, and she has nothing in terms of equipment right now, so it might be an idea.
Lady of the Lake is in a good spot right now with her equipment. She still has 2 of her 3 destinies. She still has both of her starting gear. She's got a virtue plaque, and she's got 3 tokens. She's probably going to save up, because if she gets up to 8 tokens, she can cash them in at the dungeon for a free quest coin, as though we had defeated a threat. So she's going to start hoarding those.
Guinevere, on the other hand, as Thomas mentioned, is in pretty rough shape. So she's going to go ahead and cash in her token. And in exchange, she's going to draw an Armory card, hoping for something she can break later on to avoid a wound.
So yeah, the Armory cards.
And she got Mighty Gauntlets, which she can break to avoid taking a wound token. And they allow her to use Prowess instead of Altruism, which she's never going to do because Altruism is a higher stat. However, if she did share a realm tile with another character later in the game, she could trade this off to that character for an item that would benefit her more, or so that they would have an item that benefits them more. In the case of this specific threat card, there is one more step we need to go through before discarding the card. When this threat is defeated, we actually have to add a despair token, extinguishing another flame of hope.
So that's 1/3 toward our losing conditions.
Even though we've only taken 1 full round and part of the next round, we're actually 3 rounds into losing the game because we haven't done very well on our encounters and our threat cards.
However, Mordred has one of our story quests.
So I think this is good enough to show you how the game itself plays. There's lots of opportunities for you to wander around in the kingdom and find the tiles. You're fighting off monsters. As you can see, you're trying to beat the clock, and if you can do so, you win the game. This particular style of play is a very quest-heavy, story-immersive, dice-tossing game, which is in contrast to Sherwood's Legacy, which is a Robin Hood game. It's very different, which you'll see in the other video that we uploaded. Sherwood's Legacy, in that video, you're seeing that it's very much a resource management and an auto-damage system, and the comparison between the two are vastly different. And hopefully you can compare that video and this video with the Neverland's Legacy video that we post that will be able to show you the dramatic differences between each of these legacies. The commonality is that they're all cooperative games. And that's one important thing. All of their lores are intermingling in our recreation of the lores. And this is a great way for you to see a lot of the thematic elements repeating throughout each of the games, such as some of the symbols, the color and the themes. You'll see the same threat symbols all the way through. Some of the dice are being repeated. All of our games use Destiny tokens, albeit the Destiny tokens do different things depending on the mechanic of the game. And I think all that together will give you a more vibrant experience. If you have any questions about the conversion kits, please ask us via email, or you can check it on private messaging, or please mention something in the comments and we'll try and take care of that for you. The conversion kits allow you to play your favorite characters in any of our 3 legacy games in each other's legacy games. It doesn't mean that this particular game's mechanics are convertible into Sherwood or Neverland's. It just means that you actually get to play as King Arthur in Neverland, or Peter Pan in Sherwood Forest, or Robin Hood in Camelot. And that's one of the great ways we can show you the diversity in all the folklore and mythology that we're working with. So thank you so much for watching, and we'll talk to you soon. Please spread the word, back us.
Cheers.